She burned her own cabin to signal help for Apache children, then lost everything but gained a tribe. Hells Creek, Arizona Territory, 1880. The night air smelled of smoke and rain. A lonely cabin glowed faintly against the desert's dark edge. Inside, a woman stood holding a torch, trembling. Her name was Patricia Falcon, healer, daughter, and outcast. In moments, the home she built would turn to ashes, all for 3 dying children. Lamp oil pooled across the cabin floor like spilled moonlight. Patricia's hand shook as she uncorked the final bottle, her heart pounding like distant thunder. Every plank, every wall of this cabin carried her father's memory, the man who taught her to heal, not destroy. But tonight she had no choice. Behind her, 3 Apache children lay in her wagon, fevered, barely breathing. Their small faces glistened with sweat, lips cracked and dry. She'd fought for 12 hours to keep them alive, but the poison was stronger than her medicine. Only Chaitton, their guardian, could bring the sacred herbs that might save them. Before leaving, he had said, "If danger comes, light a big fire. I will see the smoke." But danger had already arrived. The bounty hunter, Billy Simpson, was dead on her floor, his blood soaking into the boards. His partners would be here soon. Patricia looked once more at her father's portrait on the wall. "I'm sorry, Papa." She raised the torch. Flames caught the oil, racing like hungry spirits. Her world ignited, and so did her promise. The desert dusk painted the sky in copper and ash when Patricia heard the knock. 3 soft, desperate raps. Not the kind of knock a man gives, but the kind born of fear. When she opened the door, the silhouette of Chaitton stood against the dying light, carrying a small girl in his arms. 2 boys clung to his leggings, their faces pale, eyes heavy with sickness. "Please," he said, breath uneven. "Children very sick. You help Apache before. Please, you help again." Patricia's instincts took over. She cleared her table, spreading clean cloth and herbs. The girl, Kimla, maybe 6, and were burned with fever. The boys, Kitchi and Matau, struggled to stand. She recognized the tremors, the glassy pupils, and poisoning. What did they eat? She asked quickly. "Purple berries." "Bitter taste," Chaitton whispered. "I gather wood, come back, find them sick. Elderberries." She felt her stomach drop. Death could come within hours. "They need sacred medicine," she said, panic rising. "I don't have it," Chaitton nodded grimly. "I ride to my people. Bring herbs. You keep them safe." He turned toward the fading horizon, leaving Patricia alone with 3 dying children, and a promise that would demand everything. Night fell like ink. Patricia mixed crushed charcoal and willow bark, forcing the bitter paste between trembling lips. The children moaned softly, tiny sounds that felt like prayers in another language. Her lamp flickered low. The desert wind crept through cracks, whispering secrets against the walls. Somewhere beyond her cabin, a coyote cried. And another sound answered, a man's boots shifting through dry leaves. She froze. The horses neighed nervously outside. Her instincts screamed. Someone was watching. She blew out the lamp, heart hammering in her ears. Through the window the forest edge moved, not with wind, but with intent. A shadow lingered by the oak, then slowly vanished. Patricia tightened her grip on her rifle. Frontier life had taught her that mercy and danger often shared the same doorstep. But she stayed silent. She couldn't risk leaving the children. "Hold on, little ones," she whispered, stroking Kimla's burning forehead. "Hold on until he returns." In the dim light, the girl's eyes fluttered open for a moment. "Mama!" "No, sweetheart," Patricia whispered, tears forming. "Just someone trying to keep you safe." Outside, the shadow waited, smiling, patient as the desert night. His name was Billy Simpson. Once a ranch hand, now a bounty hunter who traded mercy for silver. The government paid $50 per Apache scalp. No questions asked. For 2 days, he'd tracked Chaitton and the children through brush and canyon, careful to stay unseen. When the warrior left to find help, Billy grinned. 3 sick children, 1 unarmed woman. Easy money. He'd poisoned them himself. mixed elderberries and water hemlock near their fire. They ate what they thought was food. The poison did the rest. Now he crouched outside Patricia's cabin, watching the lamplight move. The woman was known in these parts, the white healer who helped Indians. Foolish, he thought. Helping the ones who'd once burned ranches and butchered cattlemen. But Billy didn't hate her. He just didn't care. Money was cleaner than hate. He'd wait until midnight, until the woman was too tired to fight. Then he'd collect his scalps and ride south to his partners, Jake Wheeler and Tom Bradley. The firelight flickered across his face as he checked his revolver. He thought he owned the night. But the desert, as it always did, was listening, and it had already chosen sides. Inside, Patricia fought death like a soldier fights war. Her apron was stained with sweat and charcoal, her eyes hollow but fierce. She crushed herbs, whispered prayers, and used cool water from her well to bring down the children's fevers. Sometimes they stirred, calling out in Apache, clutching for hands that weren't there. Her heart ached. These weren't strangers anymore. They were her responsibility, her fragile mission from a dying world. She remembered her father's words. Healing isn't just about saving bodies. Patricia, it's about protecting hope. The hours dragged. At one point, Kimla's breathing slowed so much Patricia thought she'd lost her. She laid the girl on her chest, humming an old lullaby her mother used to sing, a song that once filled the same cabin with warmth. Then, a noise. The crunch of boots outside, slow, deliberate. Patricia froze, clutching the rifle. The fire's glow painted trembling shadows on her walls. Another step. Then another. And then, silence. Her heart thundered. She waited for the next sound, every nerve burning with fear. When it finally came, it wasn't footsteps. It was her door exploding inward. The door splintered open like thunder. Patricia flinched as wood shards struck her cheek. A man stepped through the smoke, pistol drawn, tall, broad, wearing a hat stained darker than the night, Billy Simpson. Well now, he sneered, scanning the room. 3 little prizes and 1 white angel trying to save him. His eyes landed on the children, fevered and small on Patricia's makeshift beds. $50 a scalp, he said. You just built me a fortune, sweetheart. Patricia's voice shook, but she stood firm. They're children, sick, poisoned, dying. Please. He cut her off with a laugh that scraped the air like broken glass. Don't waste breath. You think I care what they are? He raised his pistol toward Kimla. Patricia's heart split. She moved without thinking, shoving the gun aside. It fired, a deafening roar that shattered a glass jar behind her. Billy's smile widened. Got fire in you, Doc. I like that. He struck her with the rifle's stock. Pain exploded behind her eyes. She hit the floor beside her father's old chair. Blood trickling from her lip. As the children screamed, Patricia's hand found what her father left her long ago, a rifle beneath the floorboards. Billy turned, reaching for Kimla's braid. Quiet now, little one, he whispered. It'll be over quick, but the words never finished. A single gunshot ripped through the night, thunder rolling through the valley. Billy's body jerked backward, eyes wide in disbelief. He stumbled against the table, clutching his chest. Blood poured through his fingers, spreading across his dusty shirt. He gasped, mouth opening like a fish pulled from water. Then silence. Patricia lowered the rifle, hands trembling violently. Her chest heaved. For a long moment she just stared. She'd taken a life. A healer had killed. Tears blurred her vision. She dropped the weapon, collapsing beside the body. The children whimpered, clutching each other in fear. Patricia crawled to them, whispering through her sobs. You're safe. You're safe now. But she knew it wasn't true. Billy's partners, Wheeler and Bradley Doss, would come looking, and when they found what she'd done, they'd burn her cabin anyway. She looked at the dead man's pistol, then at the sleeping children. She didn't just have to protect them. She had to save them before sunrise. Outside, the wind howled across the desert. Patricia dragged Billy's lifeless body out to the brush and covered it with a tarp. The smell of death clung to her clothes. She returned inside, chest burning with fear and grief. Every instinct told her to run, but she couldn't. The children were too weak to travel. She remembered Chaitton's words. If danger comes, light a big fire. I see smoke. Her eyes drifted to the lamp oil on the shelf. The torch by the door. She knew what she had to do and what it would cost her. She poured the oil slowly, tears streaming down her face. Over the books her father left her. Over the table where she'd learned to save lives. Over the wood he'd carved with his own hands. This is madness, she whispered. But maybe madness is mercy. As she struck the match, she whispered a prayer, and not for herself, but for the 3 children who had brought purpose to her loneliness. The flame caught roaring upward, fierce and beautiful. Smoke rose into the cold sky, a cry for help strong enough to wake the mountains. 2 miles south, under a moon half swallowed by clouds, Jake Wheeler smelled something on the wind, caught to smoke. He spat, narrowing his eyes. Billy's burning something. Tom Bradley looked up from the campfire. That fool light a signal out here? Jake loaded his rifle, or someone did it for him. They mounted their horses, riding hard toward the dark horizon where a column of smoke rose like a ghost. Back at the cabin, Patricia gathered what little she could, a medical bag, a canteen, a blanket. The children stirred weakly in the wagon. The heat from the growing flames licked the walls, filling the air with the scent of ash and cedar. She coughed, choking, but kept working. Hold on, babies. Hold on. By the time the bounty hunters reached the ridge above her home, her cabin was a beacon, burning bright, fierce, alive. Jake cursed. That idiot's gone and lit up the whole county, Bradley grinned. Or maybe the woman's given us her location. They didn't see the shadow moving through the smoke. Chaitton, riding hard from the mountains, eyes locked on the inferno that split the sky. Chaitton's horse thundered across the sand, hooves drumming like war drums. He had ridden through the night carrying herbs, prayers, and fury. When he saw the flames devouring the healer's cabin, his heart clenched. Spirit guide her, he whispered to the wind. He dismounted before the firelight and found Patricia struggling to lift Kimla into the wagon. Her face was streaked with soot, her hands raw and blistered. Their eyes met, one filled with exhaustion, the other with gratitude. You came, she breathed. You called with fire, he said. Then a gunshot rang from the ridge. A bullet struck the wagon's wheel. Splinters flew. Patricia screamed, ducking low. They're here! Chaitton spun, eyes narrowing as 2 horsemen descended through the smoke. Wheeler and Bradley. He raised his rifle, firing once. Bradley fell, tumbling from his horse. Jake returned fire, missing by inches. Patricia crouched beside Kimla, shielding her with her body. Please, God, she whispered, not now. Not after this. Chaitton's voice roared across the flames. Go, woman. Take them, I hold them off. But she shook her head, tears cutting through ash. No, I won't leave you to die for my promise. The desert burned red as dawn threatened the horizon. Patricia clutched the wagon, trembling as bullets sliced through the smoke. Chaitton moved like shadow and thunder, firing from behind a fallen oak. His face was calm, eyes sharp as flint. Go, he shouted again, but Patricia refused. She tied the horses to the wagon, then crawled through the burning dust toward the wounded boy, Matau, who had rolled off the bed. His breathing was shallow, chest trembling with fever. Stay with me, she whispered. Pressing the herbs, Chaitton tossed her into a jar of water. The scent filled the air, wild mint and cedar. Jake Wheeler's voice cut through the chaos. Drop the gun, Injun. You're outnumbered. But he didn't know the truth. He was outmatched. Chaitton fired once more. The bullet found Jake's shoulder, spinning him from his saddle. He screamed, tumbling into the dirt. Patricia rushed to the wagon, blood pounding in her ears. Behind her, the cabin cracked and collapsed inward, sparks swirling like fireflies. Her father's home, her past, disappeared into a single roar of flame. She didn't look back when the gunfire stopped. Silence fell heavier than the smoke. The bounty hunters lay still, one dead, one fleeing into the hills with fear gnawing his heart. Chaitton limped toward the wagon, gripping his side where a bullet had grazed him. Patricia reached for him, steadying his arm. "Let me see," she said. He shook his head. "Later. Children first." Together they worked by the light of the burning cabin. Patricia brewed the herbs in her last pot of water. The steam smelled of earth after rain. She gave each child a spoonful, whispering, "Come on, little ones. Come back to me." Hours passed. Slowly, color began to return to their faces. Kimla opened her eyes first, weak but alive. Patricia broke down, sobbing into her hands. For the first time since her father's death, she felt grace again. Chaitton watched her, silent. "You burned your home for them," he said quietly. She looked up, eyes red. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a promise. By morning, the fire had eaten everything. The cabin was gone. Only blackened beams and the smell of cedar smoke remained. Patricia stood barefoot among the ashes, the children wrapped in blankets behind her. She felt the weight of loss like a stone in her chest. All her father's books, his instruments, the life she'd built, gone, but in the silence, she realized something else had survived. Kimla's small hand slipped into hers. Matau and Kitchi huddled close, leaning against her skirt. They didn't see a stranger anymore. They saw safety. Chaitton approached, carrying his rifle and the remaining herbs. "You can come with us," he said. "To the mountains. To my people." Patricia stared at the horizon, the land stretching endless and raw. "They'll never accept me." Chaitton's gaze softened. "You kept our children alive. The fire you lit, it reached farther than smoke. It reached hearts." For a moment she couldn't speak. The wind carried the scent of sage and burnt pine. "I don't have a home anymore," she whispered. He nodded. "Then you will have a tribe." The sun rose slow and red as blood, painting the desert in gold. Patricia drove the wagon north, her burned hands wrapped in cloth. The children slept beside her, their breathing steady for the first time in days. Chaitton rode ahead, a silent figure against the light. Every few miles he'd look back, making sure she was still there. They traveled for 2 days through canyon and dry riverbed. On the second night, Patricia heard laughter, soft, human, alive. They crested a ridge, and before them stretched a hidden valley. Chaitton's tribe. Tents rose near a river that glittered under the moon. Smoke curled from small fires. The scent of cooking herbs filled the air. People emerged as they arrived, men, women, elders. Silence fell as they saw the white woman and the children she'd saved. Kimla ran forward, calling a name Patricia didn't know, her mother's. The woman fell to her knees, crying, clutching her daughter. Patricia stepped back, heart full and broken all at once. She had kept her promise, but she didn't know that this place and this valley would soon call her one of its own weeks past. The children healed. The tribe built her a small tent by the river, gifting her herbs, woven baskets, and a new name, Nahani, which meant woman who burns the dark to bring light. Patricia taught the women what she knew of medicine. They taught her the rhythms of the earth, how to listen to wind, how to heal with roots that grew under the moon. One evening, Chaitton found her by the water's edge, staring at the mountains. "Do you miss it?" he asked. "My cabin?" She smiled faintly. "Sometimes. But I think it needed to burn, so I could see where I truly belonged." He nodded, silent for a long time. "You gave up everything." She turned toward the campfire where Kimla laughed with her brothers. "No," she said softly. "I gave up walls, and I found a family." The wind carried her words into the dusk. Somewhere far off, ashes of her cabin drifted into the sky, not as loss, but as light. Patricia Falcon's cabin turned to dust, but from those ashes rose something eternal. Belonging. Sometimes, we lose what we think is home to find what truly is. If her story touched you, remember, some fires destroy but some fires save. Subscribe, like, and ring the bell for more true human stories that burn quietly but forever.